Hello and welcome to the Pint Performance Podcast with me, Tom Blay. This week, I'm very lucky to be joined by Tim Cocker. Tim, could you introduce yourself, please, mate?
How you doing, Tom? I am. Well, first and foremost, I'm one of the many people that Tom flogs on a daily basis, and I'm all the better for it. I'm husband, father. I'm a broadcaster. That's my trade. And on the radio, that's with Virgin Radio. I do the afternoon show. On the TV, that's with BT Sport. I work on their rugby coverage, podcast, YouTube, and loads of other plates I spin in that area. And most importantly, and I've got the certificate to prove it if you needed it for verification. The thing I'm most proud of, Guinness World Record holder for downing a pint.
No way.
Yeah. Well, it's a pint of water because they won't let you do it with beer. But the fastest person on earth the fastest person that's been recorded, I'm sure there are faster, at half a litre of water.
Right. That's mental. I didn't know that.
Kicking off with a bit of toxic masculinity, Tom.
Well, we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
Right. How long did that take then?
Well, so the caveat with this is it has to be on a flat table surface when you start. Then it's the time you drink it, and then the time starts when you pick it up. The time finishes when it goes back down empty on the table, and that time was 1.75 seconds.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Wow.
Yeah, that's my career highlight, Tom. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well, it's very impressive. Even more impressive than your role last week. Cool. So we've been going back and forth a little bit, and we are going to discuss men.
Yeah.
The modern man.
Yeah.
We are modern men.
I think so, Tom.
Yep. But we are here.
Yeah.
We're here in this time.
Yeah.
In this simulation.
Interesting times at the minute, isn't it? And I think the first thing I'd say before getting into any chat about this is, one of the things that I think gets really overlooked is that any discussion of men or women or masculinity or feminine or any of these things, feminism, whatever, none of it exists in a vacuum, because men, anything that happens to men as a group or as an individual or to women or whatever affects men and women because, you're a father. I'm a father to a daughter. I'm a husband to a wife, son to a mother, and it affects all of us. So it's in all of our interests to have the most positive environment and society that we can. And I do think there are some big issues at the minute.
Yeah. Like we're half of the partnership, the classical norm, the partnership as in man and woman. Our role is changing, or it's being viewed to be changing maybe at the minute.
Yeah, and again, I think it happened with like the Enlightenment, and then we got democracy, and there was rights and civil rights and stuff, and that's all absolutely wonderful. And all I could ever want for my kids and for anyone is that they have the freedom to choose what they want to do, whatever that is.
Yeah, I feel the same. Yeah,
that's all I could ever ask for. I think what's happened, I don't know whether you noticed this. I never hear the word masculinity without toxic in front of it or without a negative connotation of it. It's sort of those traditional things which men on average, again, every individual is different and on a spectrum, but on average, some of the things which men should be viewed as positive things, sort of there's an assumption that it's negative now. And that's the one thing I really worry about. Again, looking at my son growing up and looking at other young boys and men is what effect that's going to have.
Yeah, that these physical or, these characteristics that men generally carry, that we associate with strong men are being they're being targeted, being highlighted negatively in the public space, in the online, on social media. Things like mansplaining and manspreading.
Yeah, which is just sitting with your legs apart on a tube.
Like that's been labelled as a thing.
Yeah,
to spread one's legs.
Yeah, and the first thing is, wherever sexism, racism, homophobia, anything exists, you've got it's on all of us to root that out, get rid of it, speak up, all the rest of it. That it's on all of us. But there's a mindset at the minute that worries me that all boys and all men are to some degree toxic or bad or dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think a big old can of worms is being opened if you go down that route, because it's the assumption at the minute seems to be that women have been oppressed since the beginning of time by men, and therefore there's something wrong with men. But you sort of said that everyone's free to do their own thing and choose their own. But the only reason we're sat here today having this chat, Tom, as I view it, is because of the beautiful little interplay between men and women males and females through the animal kingdom through millions of years, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Now, if we took away certain characteristics from a female, that might not happen as well. Like if we took away, the sexuality, their care, the kindness, these really positive things, it would be equally as affected. I think like society would be equally as affected, but the minute it's males and it's aggression, being confident, things like approaching women is also being attacked. How you approach women, of course, like one thing we do need to touch on is that there are women who are sexually assaulted by men,
of course,
and that is awful and horrible. But at the same time, I feel like this has had a big effect on how men are, and we're just highlighting these things because they've all had an impact on male testosterone levels, sperm counts, and how they act in society in the modern day.
That's those levels are dropping, are they?
Yes.
Wow.
So our grandfathers statistically had a much higher level of testosterone and sperm count than we do at our ages. Much higher.
Is that just from sitting with laptops on our laps all day?
Laptops.
Not lifting tin in the gym as much, or at least physical labor.
Yeah, being sat down a lot. Not doing any physical labor. Our diets, like it's been proven that plastics in foods have greatly reduced sperm counts. Drinking plastic bottled water is another one. So the plastics that come out when the water gets warmer and colder and it expands in the water, that's has an impact on sperm counts and testosterone. But I think that these are very tiny things. The main things is the role of man, like the physical job. We don't do as many physical jobs anymore. You could argue there are more jobs where you sat down. The upbringing, that people's environments when they're brought up, not being pushed into a physical sport, any exercise. I think that's huge, really. Like not having compulsory sort of PE or whatever anymore. And then, the societal sort of changes that we're seeing are having a big effect.
On the sport one, for example, because there's this sort of in your wheelhouse a little bit, and competitiveness. I work in kind of rugby. I've always played sport, and I think about how it evolved over time, and I sort of assume that sport came to be because it satisfied that urge. All people, but predominantly men, let's say, traditionally, it satisfied that urge to be a bit competitive. And you see it in the animal kingdom with, lion cubs will have little play scraps and stuff like that. So I rather, it's sort of cart before the horse. I think sport didn't happen and that made us competitive. It's sport happened because that competitive thing is wired in. It's baked into our system over millions of years. And that's why sport has become a thing. And, the participation levels, I know CrossFit, I think, is brilliant because it harnesses both. It's you're only battling against yourself and you just try and be a better you today than you were yesterday. But then you're in an environment where you can compete and you can test yourself, and that might squeeze an extra little bit out of you than you knew you had.
Yeah. CrossFit definitely does feel a little bit like sport. You can push as hard as you want, go as hard as you want to go. And like, I think with sports like rugby, and it was the same with MMA, like you're not angry after that. you've given it all out,
100%.
after you've slammed into each other and competed against someone for 80 minutes. Like there's no malice or anger left, is there? At that point, it's
No.
the best sportsmanship you'll see is usually when watching a rugby game. Like
I've seen it through my life. The power, again, rugby's just been my sport, but I know it's the case for all sorts of things, jiu-jitsu and MMA, like you say, and all kinds of other
physical
outlets
sports,
like that. Physical sports, that the power it can have on the rest of the life of a young boy, teammates that I've had over the years, and men, it's absolutely massive. And so when that gets for you, if that competitiveness or that aggression, you try and tame that, it's going to come out somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's going to come out in some way. And we've got outlets that are fantastic places to channel it. And also you can learn discipline and commitment and teamwork and all the rest of it. And you deny those opportunities, or you tell people that they're wrong or they're toxic, and they're going to come out somewhere.
Yeah. That you can see in the workplace as well, like masculine traits can be positive. So if someone would take more risks, push for promotion, try and go the extra mile at work, try and be better at work, like that competitiveness can come really positive in that sort of environment when it, increases someone's standing in a job, or, I think that's a really, really positive side of masculinity that can be expressed.
Yeah, and do you know what? That's an interesting one, because when I know certainly the second I became a father, you sort of felt that, and it's innate, and it's wired in. You have no control over it. It's just instinct, but you have that instant like revelation in your head. I would do absolutely anything and put myself in harm's way, or I'd do absolutely anything for this little scrap of cells that suddenly appears out of nowhere. And as a result, there's a lot of men who, when they become a father, will work their nuts off, make massive sacrifices, spend time away from their family to try and work hard, to try and create an environment where they give their family brilliant opportunities. And quite often the way that then gets described is not in terms of the sacrifice and the effort and the commitment, but it just gets described as that man earns more than a woman.
Yeah. When this is just, obviously it's barely even anecdotal. It's just an example.
Yeah.
But that man has sacrificed a lot more.
Yeah, well, sacrificed in different ways, and just to so the way of looking at it, and I sort of studied psychology a little bit, and basically there was one little phrase. It was, unless you have all of the variables, you can't work out an equation. You can't measure anything unless you have all the variables. So if you just look at a bloke sat at a desk and he's earning that much, and you say that's bad that you earn that much and someone else doesn't, well, okay, well, what are the other variables? How many evenings has he not put his kid to bed because he's been grafting trying to get that promotion that got him that? So it's just, you have to look at this completely in the round. And I just think those urges that we have, Tom, you and I have as fathers, I'm sure, just to make sacrifices and make commitments. My dad had 3 jobs. My mum tells me about my parents split up when I was young, but she, even in the time they were together, my mum, and not with my dad, talks really fondly about my dad. Said, your dad used to get up at 4 a.m. to go and collect newspapers and give them and then dish them out before he started his job on the dockyards, and then he did another job in the evening. So that urge is wired in, and it should be celebrated. I think it's amazing that we all have a choice to do what we want now, and there's never been a freer time for men, women to do things, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't start demonizing the things which I think should be admired. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree. Lifestyle. So I wanted to touch on this one a little bit, because as a coach, this is something I see a lot, and it's something that, like, me and my coaching staff talk about as well, is that the women are much stronger on average than men in the gym. Now, I don't mean that. I mean, my wife outlifts a lot of men, but she's unbelievable. But on average, the average women, the average blokes who come in, there's not that much difference. But biologically, like frame wise, these men should be a lot stronger than they are. But physically, they're just far less imposing. And obviously, we see now that women are pushing at work as well. They're getting the higher level jobs, which is great.
Great.
They're working longer hours and they're pursuing what they want to do, their passions. But like I've had women tell me in the gym, like that all the men, not all the men, sorry, but like some men they know, and this isn't in my gym, this is just in general, are weak. And they're like, I can't find a man who is a man. And I've heard this from different people, like dozens of different people I know, not just in the gym, out and about, like friends. I can't find a man who is a man at the minute.
Well, that's interesting. The way I look at it is, and I don't say this in a negative way at all. I think it's an amazing thing, and I think it's just how it is. But women have, and again, let's just clarify: anyone can choose whatever they want, whoever their sexual partner is, relationship, whatever. That's not the point here. Yeah. We're talking on average. So the average is this male-female relationship. But I think it's great. Women actually have the kind of power, because as far as everything I've ever seen and everything I've ever thought as I've been growing up, and all my mates, is whatever women want, that's what men will manifest and try their hardest to do. And because that's baked in, that's wired in, that's what you want to do. It's like the animals who the men put on a little show, do the birds that do those little dances and stuff. That's what you want as a bloke. So I think maybe it might just be that men are getting mixed messages. If men are being told, don't be like this, don't be like that, then they think that they're becoming what they think they should be. But actually, yeah, strong men have always been and will always be. And I don't mean physically strong. I mean like just mentally and in the way you hold yourself, and being stoic a little bit, and having that protective urge and all the rest.
That's what I meant by women can't find a man. I don't mean someone who can deadlift 250 kilos.
Yeah.
Someone who has the characteristics of a man, like you just said: stoicism, controlled aggression, drive, protectiveness, a certain level of care and confidence.
Yeah. I think there's one phrase I love, which it's not totally where you are, but just you just mentioned that phrase, strong men. And have you heard that little quote, strong men make good times? Yeah, you're nodding, you love it as well.
Yeah, strong men create good times.
Good times
create weak men.
Weak men make hard times.
Yeah.
Hard times make strong men, and around it goes.
Where do you reckon we are in that cycle right now, Tim?
I think we've just come through good times make weak men, and we're currently in weak men make hard times.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to get a fair bit worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I nearly called this. I might still call this podcast "The Rise of the Beta Male." Probably should that quote in there. But yeah, we had. I feel like we're definitely there. Things have been easy, cushy. No one's had to.
Which is amazing, because we've never been freer, never been richer, and particularly in the UK, even the people that are worst off, billions of people around the world would trade places like that in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
and I don't think a lot of people actually recognize that is where we're at. We are the luckiest humans on earth, and we're the luckiest humans in all of human history to live where we live and when we live.
Up until about last March.
Well, it is that there is definitely there's definitely things that are making it harder. There's no question. But a bit of sometimes I just a bit, and I read a lot of history books. I'm a bit of a 20th century history nerd. So there's a stack of history books next to my bed, and the podcasts, that's what I listen to. And I think it just gives you a bit of understanding the bird's eye view and what's gone before, and how it might have been if we were born in another part of the world or in a different time. It just gives you a bit of gratitude. And that means, I think that means I feel duty bound to honor the people that, landed on landed on Normandy. And all I have to do is be a good dad and be honest and try and squeeze as much out of myself as I can. I don't have to put myself in harm's way.
Yeah. And that's what they would have wanted for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all you want for your kids, is that they have it easier and have more opportunity and have better chances than you do.
What do you think would make a man, if you were to give a man characteristics, what would you name him as? Like, what would you see him as?
I think we've already mentioned a couple of them.
Yeah.
I think that's stoicism is a massive one. And again, having been a 20th century history nerd, the stuff that people went through just and managed to do it with amazing grace. So there's one very quick story on just sort of stoicism and bravery and strength of character and all these sort of things. There's one story about a load of British soldiers on a boat that were getting out of, I think it was Hong Kong during the Second World War, and there was the forces were coming in, and anyway they managed to escape on in the bottom compartment of a commercial ship, so a ferry with loads of people on it. It got sunk. The British forces were locked in this little compartment, so basically they were going down and there was no way they could get out. And people on the outside who were in little boats jumping off and stuff said what they heard was these soldiers singing as they went down.
Unreal.
And so stoicism is absolutely one. Absolutely one. And I think actually because we don't have physical needs quite as much. I mean, that said, talk to someone who lives in a part of the country where she feels where a woman feels physically threatened or whatever, actually then you would want a physically protective man. But in most cases it's not so much the physical stuff, it is the mental strength and fortitude and bravery, courage, all of those things I think are to be celebrated. But then you can ally that with an understanding of women and other people.
Yeah.
If you get all those things together, I think you got yourself the kind of man that these girls at the box or wherever else would be lining up for.
Yeah. I mean, you can tie as far as physical goes, like, a man who, I always say, healthy body, healthy mind. And like, if you are in a reasonable shape, then you're going to have much more self-confidence and self-esteem to like portray all your manly characteristics in a positive way. So, you're not going to be, be like, oh God, I'm weak, no one's attracted to me. You're going to be way more confident.
Stand a bit taller, shoulders back, chest out.
And that like kyphotic posture is something I see a lot of. Like, you look at someone from the side, they look like a plant that's on its way out.
But it's exactly the same on the kind of mind. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's absolutely true. It is a muscle. So I thought I was going to be a sports psychologist, and that's what I studied and trained to be. And it was only when I realized I'd have to be a lecturer at a university doing research papers, I went, no, that's not for me. That's not really my bag. So anyway, but the stuff I actually did training, working with athletes was amazing. So I'd do stuff with like England badminton players and bobsleigh guys, because I was at Bath University there where they were. And for example, so Wimbledon's coming up in a couple of months. When tennis players hit a rubbish shot and they just fiddle with their strings, or they go over to one of the ball boys, grab their towel and wipe their face, that's a physical cue, and they've managed to train themselves to be able to get into a totally relaxed state with a physical cue of just wiping your face or fiddling with your strings. And that's something I used to do for the badminton players. But it starts with like an hour or 45 minutes of sort of deep relaxation, breathing exercises, and all of that. And you can train yourself to get from that hour down to a couple of seconds where you go reset. And that's just when that's like, knocking your 5K run time down over time by training specifically for it. So it is the same, but sort of on the broader point, the healthy body, healthy mind, that the two are absolutely inextricably linked.
Yeah, definitely. So we've agreed that the modern man is changing, and it is a little bit different now, and we are seeing sort of like a bit of a weakening of these characteristics, I'd say. What sort of effects, like, do you think that that'll have on the relationship? Like the classic, the family relationship, the man and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. Do you think it changes the dynamic?
Well, yeah, it can do. I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's great that women have the choice to pursue a career if that's what they want to do and take that seriously, or be a mother that stays at home with children, or whatever else it is. I think having the choice can only be an amazing thing, and that has in itself changed things. That I think 60 years ago, when contraception and the birth control pill and things like that completely was a game changer for the options and the choices and the aspirations of women. And I think that's brilliant. And I've got a daughter. I want her to be able to do whatever she wants, as you do, Tom.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think it's the problems come when you deny biology. And if I actually sometimes worry about, like, my daughter and young women, if are they being told they should be able to do it all, and might they be? I think there is even data that says women are less happy than men as adults, and there's quite a lot of data pointing to the fact that there's I think this denial of biology might be part of it, where they're kind of told, no, it's not enough to just be a mum for a few years while your kids are little. You don't just be a mum. You need to be a big hotshot, go-getting career woman as well. If that's what you want to do, amazing. But if you start denying biology and that these things are baked in over millions of years, I think it could be to the detriment of the individuals, the
happiness,
kids,
like
the happiness, and that's
the family dynamic and the relationships at home.
And the same thing with boys. You mentioned it earlier. Like, young men are terrified of speaking to women. Young people are having less sex than ever. They are there's more of these, what do they call them, involuntarily celibate, incel. There's more of them than ever. There's more depression in young men than ever. There's more suicide in young men than ever. That homelessness is predominantly men. The victims of violent crime are predominantly men. Men are I think something like 98% of men are the people that are blocked from seeing children after a relationship comes to an end. So there's huge fallouts all over the place. Exactly what the causes are, I don't know, but I wonder and I worry that a denial of biology and telling people that certain traits and characteristics are negative when you have no control over them is going to take us to a bad place. What do you think?
Yeah, and to deny them, it just feels wrong. Like you're not doing what you're meant to do. Like, wow. Like, think about when we were in our, maybe like early 20s, late teens. If you felt like you couldn't approach a girl, I don't know what else I'd be doing.
Yeah. I mean, I've been together with Kate for a long time, my wife. But I used to go out on a weekend with a bunch of mates of mine when Tinder was new, and about 11 p.m. they just start swiping constantly. Like, right, I'm off, lads. See you later. So I wonder. I mean,
a good old fashioned, like.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. But that's all I remember is having to approach and speak with. But I can also understand why people would be terrified of doing that now. There is nothing worse. There could be nothing worse than being told you are some kind of sexual predator.
Yeah, I think.
And if the act of, I mean, that and being like racist are about the two worst things you could say to someone. And if a lad goes out and he's so scared to go and talk to a woman for fear of being called predatory in some way, I feel sorry for these. I feel sorry for these young men.
So it's a worrying time, isn't it? And just like, so yeah, you might not, you won't meet the girl of your dreams on a night out anyway, usually.
Yeah.
But I mean, just having the fear, the psychological impact of fearing this situation is really, really detrimental, I think.
Yeah. And as you said at the very start, yes, women are the victims of rape, sexual assault. All these things do happen and are real. But phrases like rape culture, toxic masculinity, there's a sort of bombardment of these messages, which no wonder maybe that women that say I can't find any strong men, because they're hiding any sense of them being male, and they're scared and timid as a result. And yeah, it's tough. What we need, if toxic masculinity exists, there are things that some men do which are negative, but the answer to that isn't no masculinity, it's positive masculinity, a phrase you used earlier on. That's the solution to it. Strong fathers modeling traditional masculine values, hard work, resilience, strength, commitment, stoicism, all these things. That's what positive masculinity.
What would be an example of, what would you think would be an example of toxic masculinity? Like what have you seen?
Like I don't really see it very much, but women say it happens, so I believe them. But catcalling, wolf whistling, it's but touching someone's backside on a night out, or being overly suggestive, or getting into someone's physical space and stuff, anything that intimidates but the vast majority of guys don't do that.
That's like,
I don't see that.
I've never slapped anyone's ass or whistled at someone. Can't even whistle, like, or wolf called someone or anything like that. I just like the term rape culture.
Yeah. So there's even was it an Australian university or something like, or in America, it was in Australia. They've tried to push a consent app onto like university students. So wow. both parties will, on this app say, yes, I consented to this.
What's mad is that masculine traits are actually the thing that drive men to prevent women from being raped. Because if you went in the street and asked every man, they would be horrified and angered at the thought of a woman being raped.
Yeah.
Like it would trigger every sort of like fight or flight aggression in you to protect.
Yeah.
That's a trait you want to preserve. Like,
yeah, and
that's a trait you need.
Yeah, and the fact that it's overwhelmingly men in the police service, fire service, armed forces, that isn't because there's a sexist culture or women have been excluded or oppressed. That is just because those characteristics are wired in, and that urge to protect is there, and it's a beautiful thing. Like, soldiers, and millions of them in the past, died to protect their mothers and wives and daughters and sons, obviously, and fathers. But it's a beautiful thing, and firefighters will run into a building to get everyone out, and I just think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
and it's the solution. And like you say, quite a contentious example of it, but was it Rotherham, the where there was actual rape going on a systematic level. There was gang and people and the police officers were scared to intervene because of fear of being judged, when actually their actual instincts was this is wrong and I need to.
That's insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's an insane point where you're afraid of breaking up rape and stopping rape
for fear of what they may be called.
Anti-rapist, anti-rape.
Crazy.
Insane. We mentioned something before we started, and as you're a bit of a history buff, you'd looked at societal changes in past empires and past
Yeah, this is quite
we
interesting.
had a chat on the phone the other week, didn't we? And I said to you, I feel like history never repeats, but it rhymes.
100%. 100%. So yeah, I'm not up to speed with all the lingo on what these words are, like cuck and sim. I don't know what any of that means. Maybe you can educate me on like the speak that's around now. But I can talk about history because I've read a bit about that. But yeah, it's one trait that there's been when civilizations crumble, come to an end. It happened in Rome, it happened in Greece, it happened in ancient Egypt. It's happened around the world through many hundreds different civilizations, different eras. One thing they all have in common is when a civilization ends, just before it comes a period where identity issues come to the fore. Sexuality, gender, all these sort of things which we're starting to see and have seen, and it's a relatively recent phenomenon, a lot of this stuff. That is one of the things when you look back at all the stuff that was written back in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, that was the stuff that society was getting preoccupied just before it all came to a pretty shattering end, which should be a warning.
Well, if I wasn't concerned, I am now. I am very concerned though.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see it more at the minute of like as a divider, like just a divider of people. Is that sort of the way it went? Like it just divided everybody?
Yeah, I think it was basically you get all these resources. So, ancient Greece owned massive chunks of the world. So did Rome. And you just sort of get fat off the land and off the resources. And, you've never had it so good. And actually, I think that's basically what it is. You've got absolutely everything, and you've got the best possible scenario you can have when you have the time and the energy to get into arguments about stuff which really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think that's basically what it was. You get a bit complacent, you get lazy, and then you've got the ability, because you've got all this leisure time and you haven't got to worry about where the next meal is coming from. You can start arguing about all of these things. And at the minute, that's the argument is, what's the phrase I heard which sort of nailed it overall? When you look at all these identity things, social constructionism, basically, where the assumption is from a lot of people, they're trying to argue when we're born, we're, what's the phrase, blank slate, so that we are all completely identical. And then if there's a difference between any group of people, it's because society has engineered it that way and made it happen, and therefore you can reverse it. So the fact that men are more aggressive isn't anything to do with biology and millions of years of evolution. It's all to do with society has made that happen, because when they were born, boys and girls were completely the same, and we've made them that way, and therefore we should be able to reverse it. That's what that's what basically everything is. All the arguments are about is trying to reverse what they think is, as we've put on people.
Socially engineered, sort of.
Socially engineered. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this wasn't the chat today, but like the biological part of that, puts a big spanner in the works there, doesn't it? Really. It
does a little bit. Does a little bit. And also, just what I find mad about this is, we all go to like a safari park, or you watch a nature documentary. It's like, well, it's in every single corner of the animal kingdom. It's all the same principles. You've got one massive lion, and he's got the group of women, and they're not being kept there by force. They're like, no, I want this massive strong male, because he'll give me more likely to give me strong offspring, and if another pack comes along, he'll look after us.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the lions, the sort of young pretender will come up and try and knock off the old stager, and if he manages it, then well, that's the one we want to be with now. Do one, old man.
Exactly. Yeah, the strongest rises to the top, and then looks after the group.
Yeah. Oh, mate, there'll be so many people that would try and mischaracterize this chat we've had. You see the same thing happen with so many people. What will be called toxic? This would be toxic masculinity.
I mean, I'm not trying to like make anyone. I'm not trying to. This is just our opinion. Like, You can think whatever you want, and I will literally listen and respect your views. I'm not necessarily wrong. This is just how we feel. And every David Attenborough documentary I've watched as well has shown, and they've had to point out which one was the female. Sorry, they've not had to point out which one was the female, which one was the male, and the roles that they played, because it's obvious. Like, it's been really obvious, and there's obviously.
I mean, yeah, and even like what is it? The praying mantis, for example. You know, the male will go, "All right, I'll give you offspring, and then I'll be your dinner."
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah, well, but there's all these different. You can tie them all together in loosely into principles, but certainly in mammals, it's pretty obvious where we've come from, how we're wired, and why we've ended up being here having this conversation in the first place.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. I find it awe-inspiring and amazing when you think that we're part of something that big.
Yeah,
makes you feel small, but amazing as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm really fascinated about like the societal changes that happen just before the destruction of each empire. Like, I think that's huge. Like that's running now, and you know what it's like at the minute. There's a distraction every week on the news. There's something new every week. We've been living in Black Mirror for the last year anyway, but it's still continuous. Like, something else happens every week that gets our attention. There's another outrage that grabs our attention again, and it really shouldn't. But it just takes your eye off the ball, doesn't it? Like, we've got everything here. The government have even been paying everyone all year.
I know. Well, it's like I do like this show called Naked and Afraid. I don't know if you've ever seen it on the Discovery Channel, and basically they just drop people in the middle of nowhere with a knife and a firelighter, and that's it, and they've got nothing. No clothes or anything. It's just a man and a woman just dropped in the middle of nowhere. So one of the most hospitable places on earth. And when you watch them, you're like, all of their time and all of their energy is based around trying to just find water, get clean water, try and find some food. And basically they have 3 weeks to try and survive. And sometimes they have to tap out or be told you've got to leave because they're gonna die. And yeah, we're at a situation now where we've got abundance of food, abundance of choices, no worries about health, medicine's at the best place it's ever been, and we've got the time, and as you say, the sort of psychological warfare that's being waged on us, to like, our brains are all exploding at the minute with all this information. It's mad.
Just reminded me of something that there's some militaries use porn as like a war tactic. So I've read this study about porn and what it does to men, and how it rewires through dopamine responses from watching porn. Like, you can get anything, can't you? You find anything you want, clown porn, anything that gives you that dopamine response. So what it does is...
I'm just making a note of that, Tom. Hold on, sorry.
It rewires your reward system. So because you can just scroll through and find another video of whatever you want, that gives you like a buzz. And what it does is it weakens the reward system of finding a woman and having sex with a woman who you love or whatever, or don't love.
Wow, yeah. Well, that tallies with a lot of what I've heard about teenage boys. Just can't. There's a lot of teenage boys who are finding they just can't. They're not excited by an actual normal sex, because
it's not as varied, it's not as consistent as your browser on your phone or whatever it is you use in your laptop.
Can you remember how sorry to be crude or whatever, do you remember just how mind-blowing it was the first time you just like touched a boob? Like all I'd ever seen of a woman before that was the odd little page of a newspaper that someone had shoved in a hedge. That was it.
Yeah, like page 3. Do you remember page 3 was the thing? Yeah. So it's just it's totally down. Imagine getting to the point where you're 18, however old you are when you have sex for the first time, and it being a fucking letdown because it's not the chick you like on whatever porn site it is you're visiting. That's staggering, but that's where we're at. Like, it's so much so that a military uses it as a weapon. And so they studied a certain type of monkey in captivity and in the wild. And in the wild, like in Naked and Afraid, all they're thinking about is food, protecting themselves, water, fire. And the monkeys never masturbated, like once every 2 years. And then in captivity, they're just firing him out all the time, just knocking him out, knocking himself senseless, just wanking all the time. And it's like a massive distraction. But how does it make you feel? Like it's negative, because it starts drilling in all these negative traits.
Well, on that, we mentioned involuntarily celibate. What is a cuck and what is a simp? And what are these words that I keep hearing in this sort of area?
A cuck is fuck me. Never thought I'd be talking about. I thought I'd be talking about air squats on this podcast, right?
Well, so, we don't. You don't have to go down there, because I don't know what it is. I could be opening a can of worms. I don't want to open it.
A cuck is a man who has a partner and allows another man to come in and sleep with his wife. So you got a bird, got a wife, and then Dave comes round and bangs your missus 7 ways from Sunday.
Right.
And you're fine with it. And it's sound. And you fist bump him on the way out. That's a cuck.
They say they're fine with it. They're not fine with it.
Depends if he buys him a Nintendo Switch or whatever it is that the betas need to.
Oh wow,
mate!
Wow,
that's crazy. Now think of like the person. Think of the man. I'm going to call him that. Who will accept that? Is he confident? No. Has he got any sort of protective aggression in him whatsoever? No, because what it tells me is that, like, the reason we have this aggression, the reason we're protective over our partner, is because we want to keep our line going. We want to keep our genes going. We want to keep our genes alive for as long as possible.
Yeah.
So think of how weak the man is who just lets his bird get smashed by someone else, who puts them at risk of the genes ending, because your missus is having Dave's baby.
Wow. What's the animal that I think dolphins sort of is? I don't know why I've suddenly thought this. Dolphins, I think it's dolphins. The females just have it from everyone, so that none of the males, so all of the males will think, well, it might be mine, so I won't kill it.
Right.
With the babies.
Okay.
But I don't think that's what's going on here.
No, we don't raise babies in a community, do we? We raise them
at
home with the family, so it's a bit different.
Yeah,
you know, when we're in the human household.
Oh dear, Tom.
That's mad, that, isn't it? A simp. A simp is described as someone who just completely worships, like, you know, like an OnlyFans or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, throws hundreds, thousands pounds at some chick who just gets her tits out on whatever OnlyFans for him.
And they feel it's some kind of form of a relationship.
Yeah, lives a relationship that's not real.
Oh, that's
it's probably
really
sad, isn't it? It's really sad.
So I'm quite interested how CrossFit gets caught in the crosshairs or not, or actually maybe it's thought of as a solution or a positive thing. But are there people that have tried to change the industry or the community or whatever? Is it thought of? Does it get called negative at times or?
No, I mean, the good thing about CrossFit is it celebrates both the men and women. And I mean, I've watched CrossFit games in the past. I mean, for the past 5 years, the men's competition's been pretty boring, to be honest, because it's just Matt Fraser cleaning up. And I've found myself enjoying the female side of it. And obviously I coach women. I care about what women clean and jerk and do franning just as much as I do with men at my gym.
Yeah.
You know, I coach my wife. She's my favorite person to coach, and I love seeing her progression. So CrossFit's pretty even, I think.
Yeah.
You know, the female.
Yeah, no, it certainly feels like part of the solution rather than any problem.
Yeah.
Because like I say, because fundamentally it's the principle of scaling. It means that everyone can compete, and you can feel that progression, and that's that means you're battling yourself first and foremost. But
I think that CrossFit for is for anyone and everyone. Like anyone will feel benefits from it when obviously they're coached. It's safe, best environment, good members around you. Like it's only positive. It'll increase your confidence, your fitness, your self-esteem, and it'll improve your relationships as well. Because if you come home with more confidence and you're happy with yourself, and like we said earlier about sport, any aggression or, you know, any malice that you have, any anger, you're not angry after CrossFit. Like you're done. Like all that, you're peaceful, usually calmer. Like you've just exerted yourself for the day. So I think that training and using your body can only be a positive thing for men and women. And it can only enhance positive masculine traits. But it's sort of the opposite end of things, because these things like porn and not pursuing women always have the opposite effects.
Yeah, that like you get it's all the serotonin, dopamine hit. You get those great dopamine hits after a workout. And yeah, I mean, I used to do a breakfast show in Manchester on the radio. So I'd be up at 4:30 in the morning, and the number of times, you know, I could just, the number of times that when your body's out of sync like that and you've been deprived of sleep and stuff, you'd make bad choices sleeping, you know, all the rest of it. But actually, I used to find that in the afternoon, do a workout and I'd just be energized. It was just suddenly I'd just get this burst of energy, positivity, productivity. Then that would have a kick-on effect, and I'd make better choices with eating. And so yeah, just in fact it was CrossFit that honestly it was that, but I shed so much bad weight when I first started doing it. But it wasn't just the workout. It was actually that I slept better. I made better choices with food because my head was in a more positive place, and those hormones were just having a total knock-on effect. And that made me a better husband. It made me a better dad. Made me a better friend. It made me a better man. Yeah.
It's mad. I mean, like I don't know if you've ever been called this, but like I've been called like a health freak in the past, or obsessed. I am obsessed. But like it's been deemed negative to lever the gym, and like, oh, and especially with all this COVID stuff as well. Like, it's all right for you. You go to the gym. I'm still a human being. Like, why is that so different? Like to you, why can't you do that?
Yeah, I think you find, and it's not just physical stuff. I think you find that with anyone. You don't achieve anything. What's that? Like nothing worthwhile is easy, and nothing easy is worthwhile. So when I look at my career, the sacrifices I've made, the lengths I've gone to, you know, I spent 18 months basically living on a bed in a little spare room in my aunt's house, away from my kids who I wasn't putting to bed 3 nights a week, because I had a goal on creating an environment and a life for us that was going to benefit them. And that's exactly the same as applying yourself systematically, religiously, with total commitment to your physical development. It's all the same thing. And I think actually it's envy a lot of the time. It's envy, and it's a sort of helplessness that people don't have the mindset where they can. So rather than aspiring to that, they'll bring people down that have achieved in some way, which makes me sort of feel for them really more than anything. There's a lot of envy when people succeed or excel, which is why, again, just going back to the whole masculinity thing, which is why I think when there are great role models, don't tell them that they've stolen that from someone else, women or whatever, or you shouldn't be being paid that because you're only getting that because you're a man, or just, you know, celebrate the positive stories and the great role models.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you can ever like elevate. No one elevates themselves by bringing others down. Like it just doesn't work like that. I've never seen it. I've never seen it happen.
No.
It's only negative. Interesting. Training though, training. It's for everyone, I think, and it's really important. I think for your mind and for this, this dynamic we have as man and woman. It shouldn't just be the one of us who goes out and trains. Like you and Kate both train, don't you? Like, it's definitely an important aspect of our lives, which is being ignored and downplayed massively. Like the other day, I was talking to a woman and she said that I was promoting alternate medicine by saying that more people needed to diet and exercise and employ some mindfulness.
Wow.
Alternative medicine.
Wow. What? My word. It's like if you were alive in hundreds of years ago, you'd want to have thousands of years ago, you want to have a suit of armor to go into battle with. But now, especially with the world as it's been the last year or so, that's been a takeaway for me. It's like, right, okay, rather than waiting for someone to take my problems out of my hands, what can I do? So yeah, I can make sure I stand out in a bit of sunlight, vitamin D, easy, tick, done. I can make sure if I eat good foods and don't eat too many of the crap oils that get in the mitochondria and affect the ATP respiration in your cells, then well, that's it. That's easy done. And then the bonus is I feel great. I can put my immune system in a great position, get enough sleep, drink enough water, all of that, so that if I get ill, hopefully, touch wood, won't get too ill. But I feel great as well, and I'm a better dad, and I'm doing better at work, and I feel good.
Yeah, you're allowed to be who you are fully. You're just opening every single avenue of potential for yourself, like by being the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and by doing what? By 1 hour a day going and applying myself at a CrossFit session, and just there you go on my fitness pal on my phone, and just being aware of what I'm putting in my body. That's not a sacrifice.
I wouldn't call it alternative medicine either.
Certainly not. Yeah, and again, but again, when like that Naked and Afraid or humans that existed thousands of years ago, they take food and water and all the rest of it wherever they could. They weren't doing squats. They were climbing up mountains and chasing animals. But now we're at a position where we're so lucky with the leisure time we have. But yeah.
We don't have to spend all our time finding resources and killing animals and whatnot.
No, but the consequences of not using your body, as you said, can be fatal.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
definitely fatal. Yeah, mate, we've covered a hell of a lot there.
Yeah, it was. Mate, it's not nice to talk to. It's nice to just find kind of like-minded people at the minute, isn't it? Because sometimes don't you feel like you're in a bit of a sort of a silo, and there's certain truths that you think that you just can't utter, or you have to check. Hold on, if I use the word masculinity with you, are you gonna think I'm the worst type of person? So I just won't say it, and that on a whole load of different issues.
Yeah. Honestly, like I do feel incredibly isolated as I am right now, super isolated, and that goes all the way to like family, friends. Like you just feel like you can't discuss things with them because it triggers them so aggressively or violently that they can't even have a reasonable conversation with you. It upsets them, so they just attach negative feelings towards you, and they won't talk to you about anything or open up fully. It's tough times. So like these chats with like-minded people, even people who disagree with me, like it's fine as long as you talk though and have a conversation. But like-minded people, it's a rarity, and it lifts me up massively, mate. So I really appreciate it.
Likewise, Tom. Likewise, and like I say, if there is hold on, what have I learned today? If there is a simp or a cuck that listens, get to your nearest CrossFit box, because that's your way out, or a gym, or wherever.
I think anything.
Get a good dopamine hit, not what was it? Clown porn, not that.
Yeah. Delete the OnlyFans account, chin the porn app off, like, and just start doing things for yourself instead of searching for it on your phone. Only positive things can come from that, and life will just open up for you.
Being quote unquote alpha is not a bad thing.
No,
do it
absolutely. And even if you're not the alpha, employ some alpha characteristics every day. Manifest
your alpha.
Yeah, less beta.
Sound. Well, on that, I'm gonna see if I can actually do more than one pull up in a row today when I'm at the box. So I'll catch you later, Tom.
I'll be coaching you at R4, pal.
Sound.
Brilliant.
Top man, Tom.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Take it easy, bud.
Thanks for listening, guys.